Once again, NATO is in crisis. It seems like this is happening every 3 or 4 years. It predates and will postdate Trump. We are engaged in a bombing campaign to disarm the Iranian theocracy that for 47 years has killed Americans in embassies and military installations. It supplies the terrorists of Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. It funds and subsidizes terrorists in Europe, tried to kill President Trump. I could go on forever.
Not our war. That's what NATO allies told the United States while asking it to defend them from Russia, fund their security, and underwrite their energy dependence. The alliance that won the Cold War just told its leading member, handle Iran yourself, but make sure you're available when we need you. That contradiction is not a diplomatic spat. It is a structural failure decades in the making, and it may finally be forcing a reckoning that reshapes Western defense entirely.
So we decided enough is enough because we felt that their ballistic missiles had a range that could harm Europe and soon us, and that was proven by its launching of 2 missiles toward Diego Garcia Islands and the Indian Ocean. And what was the result of our NATO allies when we said, we don't have to do it, we'll do the heavy lifting along with Israel. Don't have to do anything. I know we helped you in Ukraine. I know we helped you in Serbia. I know we helped you French in Chad. I know we helped you British when you went to the Falklands on that long adventure and you needed fuel and reconnaissance and resupplies and Tomahawk. We know all that, but we're not asking that. We don't need it. All we want to do is land at the bases that we share with you on your soil under NATO. So Spain said, nope, can't do it. You can't fly through our airspace. We said, well, maybe if we're going from our base in Britain, we'll go across France. Nope, can't do that either. Well, how about when our bombers want to refuel in Italy? No, you can't do that. Can't do that. Well, how about Diego Garcia? We've used that before. And Mr. Strumer, not our war. Not our war. I think somebody should have said Falklands was not our war either. And in 1939, 1940, it wasn't our war either. 41, 42, we came over there. But nevertheless, that was what they wanted to do. So the question is, what do we do? Well, we've almost finished the campaign in Iran. Apparently we didn't need those bases because we're still supplying them very well with what bases that we do have access to. The Greeks have been wonderful. There's a NATO base at Suda Bay, Crete, and they're helping repair the new Gerald Ford aircraft carrier. It seems to me that when they say they won't do it, part of it is they can't do it. They have made a series of investments, policies, protocols that have paralyzed that entire continent. They have dreamed of utopia and the good life, and the result is their fertility rate is 1.3. They are shrinking, they are aging, they're not competitive. So they don't have the manpower, even though they have a 450 million person population, Europe does, larger than us by 100 million. And even though they have 22 trillion GDP, which is the 3rd largest, apparently they don't want to invest that in their own defense, or they haven't so far. They don't want us to use it when we need it. They have no energy to speak of. They went complete New Green Deal, solar, wind. We're not going to use our natural gas reserves. We're not going to drill for them. We're not going to do what we're dependent on the Middle East and Russia. So we're going to put you in an absurd situation, U.S. You're going to come over here to Europe to defend us from a potential Putin invasion while we beg you not to sanction that oil. We need it. So we want to give him money for the oil so he can use the money to buy arms to invade Ukraine and maybe us. When Trump said it was crazy, they laughed at him. It's not just that. Energy, it's not just fertility. They have no borders, so to speak. So they've had millions of people coming from a hostile Middle East and Arab world who had no intention of fully integrating, assimilating, and acculturating. And under their systems of parliamentary democracies, those factions have some veto power over policy, but more importantly, they're terrified of Islam. They've had so many terrorist incidents, they think the only proper way to deal with radical Islam is to appease it. And appeasing it is what they do. add all that up, they also have a utopian idea of defense. So they had been completely, pretty much unarmed until the invasion of Ukraine, and now they're trying to catch up. But when you have a continent that has been unarmed, that is shrinking in size in terms of population, that has high-priced energy that's limited and there's energy shortages, and doesn't have the confidence to defend its own borders, and has let in millions of people who don't like their host, the result is it can't defend itself, and therefore it creates an exegesis to explain that reality. And the exegesis is, we are morally superior to you. We have all these bases, we have the ability, we have fleet, they don't, and we think as morally superior people, we don't want you using them, and don't think you're protecting us on your unilateral crusade. Yes, the missiles could hit us, yes, they could be nuclear tipped if you hadn't intervened, but that's not our problem.
Let's be precise about what just happened, because the specifics matter more than the general outrage. The United States asked NATO allies for one thing: not troops, not money, not a joint declaration of war, access to bases that already exist on soil that American taxpayers have helped defend for 75 years. Spain said no to airspace. France said no to overflights. Italy said no to refueling. Diego Garcia, a base with deep historical precedent for exactly this kind of operation, was effectively blocked. The ask was minimal. The refusal was total. Now hold that against the ledger. The United States helped NATO in Serbia. It provided fuel, reconnaissance, resupply, and Tomahawk missiles to Britain during the Falklands that had zero strategic relevance to American interests. It helped France in Chad. It has underwritten European security through 2 generations of Cold War posture, then one of post-Cold War expansion, and now a hot war on the continent's eastern edge in Ukraine. The pattern of American contribution to European security is long, expensive, and largely unrequited. And the one time Washington asks for reciprocal access, not to the crutz, manpower, not treasure, just runway, the answer is no. The explanation offered is moral. This is America's unilateral crusade, not a collective defense obligation, but that framing only works if you ignore the stated stakes. Ballistic missiles with European range, potential nuclear capability, an Iranian government that funds terrorism inside European cities, not just in the Middle East. The argument that this is purely an American problem requires European leaders to pretend that Iranian missiles pointed at the continent are somehow not a European security concern. That is not a principled position. It is a convenient one. So why is it happening? The transcript gives the real answer, and it has nothing to do with high-minded neutrality. Europe cannot defend itself. That's the blunt truth underneath the diplomatic language. The fertility rate is 1.3. The population is aging and shrinking. Defense investment has been neglected for decades, not because of budget constraints, but because of a deliberate political choice to prioritize welfare state expansion over military capability. The green energy transition eliminated domestic fossil fuel production and created structural energy dependence on the very adversaries NATO was designed to deter. Russia was funding European energy consumption, while Europe was demanding the United States defend it from Russia. Trump called it crazy in 2018. The European press laughed at him. Then Russia invaded Ukraine. The immigration dimension adds another layer of paralysis. Millions of arrivals from the Middle East and North Africa with no serious integration framework have created internal political factions with effective veto power over foreign policy decisions, particularly anything involving military action in Muslim-majority countries. European governments are not neutral on Iran because of strategic calculation. They are neutral on Iran because they are afraid of their own streets. That is not moral superiority. That is domestic political hostage-taking dressed up as principle. The result is a continent that has outsourced its security, hollowed out its military, made itself energy dependent on hostile states, lost control of its demographic composition, and now lectures the country that has been covering its defense costs for 3/4 of a century about the ethics of military intervention. The gap between the posture and the reality is staggering. Europe presents itself as the mature, restrained, multilateralist alternative to American unilateralism, while being entirely dependent on American unilateralism to survive. That's the context for not our war. It's not a strategic judgment. It's the only move available to governments that have systematically dismantled their capacity to make any other move. And the United States just had that reality confirmed in the most direct way possible at the exact moment it needed something in return.
Even though the Iran thing is going perfectly well, it's a month into it, we've almost destroyed the war-making potential of Iran. What's the future? Do we get out of NATO? I don't think we do get out of NATO. I think we just let it die in the vine. We just say, you know what, we were a full NATO member. Oh, you wanted us to go into Ukraine again and defend you? But Ukraine's not a NATO power. There's no Article 5. This is your problem. This is on your doorstep. Oh, you want us to go into Serbia? And the Serbs are acting up again? That's not a NATO problem either. They're not attacking any NATO nation. I don't remember Kosovo was in NATO. So you can handle, that's a European problem. Oh, you want to go into Africa to your old colonies and stop the Islamists from taking over Chad? That's not our problem. Oh, you think the Argentine government might want the Falklands back someday? That's not our problem. That's our attitude. Meanwhile, we can have very productive bilateral coalition of the willing relationships. We can say to the Czechs, we can say to the Poles, we can say to any of them, and we said, you know what? We'd like to have our bases in the Azores. Portugal, what do you want to do? It's up to you. You want a bilateral agreement? Because NATO doesn't mean much anymore, but we will have a special relationship with you, and we will guarantee your territory integrity and your national security for exchange and a partnership. And I think we could find 6 or 7 European powers that together would make ideal alliances with the United States, and then we can just go through the motions with NATO. Don't cause any more trouble with them. Just say, you guys are wonderful, and we're going to treat you like you treat us. So we are one of 32 nations, and we'll pay 1/32 of the budget. We're tired. And you guys have had 2 big world wars. You've been the birthplace of Western military dynamism. Go to it, rearm, and we'll just kind of lag it along, kind of half walk, and we'll tell you we're a fine NATO power. We'll be kind of like Canada. Canada pays about 1.5%. We've got on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, like Canada. You love Canada. You love Canada. You don't like us. We're going to be your Canada. We will expend as much effort and as much arms and as much intervention as Canada does. And that will be the new NATO.
We'll be your Canada. That line sounds like a joke. It's not. It is a precise and devastating strategic threat, and Europe should take it seriously. Canada contributes roughly 1.5% of GDP to NATO. It has no meaningful force projection capability. It shows up symbolically and goes home. The United States at Canada level engagement means no Article 5 backstop when Russia moves on a Baltic state. No American air power when a European capital needs covering, no Tomahawks, no carrier groups, no the cavalry is coming. Europe handles Europe. That is what will be your Canada actually means. And the proposed alternative, bilateral coalitions of the willing, is not a bluff. It's already happening. Greece is providing base access. Portugal and the Azores are on the table. Poland, the Czech Republic, the Eastern European states that actually remember Soviet occupation and have been investing in defense accordingly. These are natural partners for a restructured American alliance posture. The United States doesn't need 32 members. It needs 6 or 7 serious ones. The rest can have the letterhead. Here is the underlying logic, stated plainly. NATO's value to the United States has always been a function of what members contribute and what they're willing to do. If the contribution is negligible and the willingness is conditional on the operation being politically convenient for domestic European audiences, the alliance isn't an alliance. It's an American security guarantee with European veto power attached. That is an arrangement that benefits exactly one side, and the side that benefits is not the one paying. The warning embedded in this transcript is not that the United States will leave NATO, it's that NATO will be left to become what it actually is, a forum, a brand, a set of procedures, while real security relationships are rebuilt on bilateral terms with partners who show up. Europe had a chance to be one of those partners. It chose not to be. The consequences of that choice are now being designed.